Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm Emily Timpey and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. During today's presentation, attendees will be in listen-only mode. If you experience technical problems, please use the questions pane of the GoToWebinar control panel. I'll be monitoring that area, especially during the start of our presentation today, so I can offer assistance if you need it. You may also use the questions pane at any time during today's presentation to ask questions you may have during the talk, but questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. So we are pleased to have Bryant Korzinski with us today. Bryant Korzinski is a class of 2000 graduate from the University of North Carolina at Asheville with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Atmospheric Sciences. He has worked with various federal contracts at the National Centers for Environmental Information for over 17 years on various projects related to data modernization, data receipt, and data quality. Bryant serves as NCEI's class instructor at the Climate Network Operations and Operational Climate Services classes that are held at the National Weather Service Training Center in Kansas City, Missouri. With NCEI as the lead center for WMO Regional Association 4, he also regularly interacts with countries and colleagues at the World Meteorological Organization in support of the Global Climate Observing System for its surface network and upper air network stations. In his free time outside of work, Bryant volunteers for multiple agencies and causes in the Asheville, North Carolina area. Bryant has been the recipient of the Person of the Week as presented by WLOS TV back in December 2015 for his volunteer efforts with the Asheville Downtown Association. So Bryant, whenever you're ready.
Alrighty, thank you, Emily, and thank you for everyone for calling in this afternoon. I just need to show you a picture of myself. If you've never met me before in person, this is me, thumbs up, and this is here, and this is at my desk about an hour ago before beginning this webinar. So I just wanted to make sure that you could put a face to a name or an email address depending on if you've interacted with me or not over the years. So I wanted to give the basis for why I've been asked to present this particular webinar, and it's the result of a question that's been received from one of your colleagues, a National Weather Service Forecast Office employee. And they've asked about filing Datzilla tickets and about some of the jargon associated with the QC process here at NCEI, about the historical data in GHCN Daily, getting a better understanding of the procedures in relation to Datzilla, along with some of the data set acronyms, or the acronym soup, as you will, of what we use here at NCEI, and some additional information from that same person. They reference the NWS Climate Services meeting that was held last May, where I presented some items as coming soon. So I'll be able to give an update on this, but also provide a little bit more detail regarding Datzilla, about GHCN Daily, and some other items that they've asked for per this request. So what I'm going to go over today is going to be 3 parts. The first part is about Datzilla, how to do a Datzilla ticket submission, which in this case, I'm going to utilize a previously submitted and resolved Datzilla ticket to show the ticket submission to you. Go over best practices regarding ticket submissions. The second part is going to relate to GHCN Daily, its QC checks, and go over what we are making newly available from NCEI to your forecast offices in regards to quality flag files from GHCN Daily, and we'll go over that a little bit more detail in a little bit. And then the third part is linking Datzilla and GHCN Daily to XMASIS. Talk about the ingest of Datzilla corrections from the GHCN Daily data set. Talk about the differences in how data appear between GHCN Daily and XMASIS and vice versa. And then go over a newly updated climate data comparison tool that our colleagues at the Northeast Regional Climate Center, or NRCC for short, has recently made available. And I'll give a demo of that tool as well. Just a little disclaimer about today's webinar. If you've been in any of the co-op classes at the training center where I have taught, this is to mention in advance that this is not a lab session. The lab session there at the training center that I normally teach is about 2 hours, and it's just about utilizing tools. It's not necessarily doing a question and answer session such as what may have been sought here for this webinar. This is a from the clouds overview of Datzilla and how it links to GHCN Daily and XMASIS. And I do ask if you have specific questions about Datzilla tickets that you have submitted in the past regarding their status, I respectfully ask that you submit those questions as a comment within the ticket itself. We only have an hour for this particular webinar, which includes presentation and questions. So I respectfully ask that you submit those questions via the ticket if that's what you're intending, if you're intending to ask me such questions during the webinar here. And then any other in the weeds scenarios related to Datzilla, you can always email me. My email address is bryant.korzynski@noaa.gov, and I'm more than willing to answer any questions that you have outside of this webinar if it pertains to anything that's in the weeds variety. So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that before we proceed. So we're going to start off, the first part is we're going to go over Datzilla, do a quick overview. And if you're familiar with Datzilla, you may already know that it is an error reporting and tracking system. It is a tool for addressing and resolving data errors in the archives here at NCEI, as well as if you submit tickets for XMASIS, Now Data, or ThreatX, it can be utilized for those as well. It allows you to participate in the investigative process where you provide your ticket submission. If I have any questions, I ask them of you, and then you return with answers and/or supporting evidence. It is a two-way communications tool, so please utilize it in that way. Any questions that you have regarding anything mentioned within a Datzilla ticket, please ask questions. There is no wrong question, and there is no wrong answer. So please utilize the Datzilla ticket as a way to communicate if you do not understand anything that's being said within a ticket. Datzilla is a manual quality control process. It does involve staff here at NCEI besides myself, and it also involves multiple hours. It can result in multiple hours depending on the ticket that you are submitting. So the more issues that are submitted within a ticket, the more time it's going to take to address it. And it is a manual process to do so on our end. And to give credit, Datzilla is maintained by the Southern Regional Climate Center, or SRCC, at Louisiana State University. They have maintained Datzilla for over 12 years, and they've just released, actually August of last year, they released a newer version of Datzilla, which I credit them for being an almost seamless transition process to the current version. So kudos to them. So I want to make sure I give them credit. Why use Datzilla? So there is a mandate, and the mandate on our end, in a nutshell, is the responsibility to collect and preserve the nation's climate data record. So, and this is per the Federal Records Act of 1950, as well as the the U.S. Code Title 44, Chapter 31, Records Management by Federal Agencies. So we have two mandates here that two documents that we have to utilize to fulfill this particular mandate, and Datzilla helps fill that particular role. So now I'm going to exit out of the presentation, and I'm going to go through a Datzilla ticket here. And this is one which coincidentally was submitted by Emily back in late August. And it's in regards to a snowfall value that's actually an occurrence of hail. And Emily reported this to us via this particular Datzilla ticket number 7599. And what I'm going to show you here are some of the things that Emily has utilized within this ticket submission. So she's able to include attachments of supporting evidence to show the correction of the data value in question. and you have the ability to do so within the Datzilla ticket. And if I go further down here, you'll see her ticket submission here. And let me do this. Let me increase there we go, that's a little better. To show you her initial ticket submission, which she has included the date that's in question, the station itself, even including the GHCN ID. So there's extra points there for her doing so there, but also indicating the element in question. And once she has submitted the ticket, I get an email notification of this same information here. And then I provide further advisement to Emily, and I defer this to our ASOS point of contact, Blake Glasher, and provide any additional information that I can find. And when I go and further investigate, I'm not seeing the particular issue on the F6 on her WFO's website, so I ask her for additional information, and she does provide that information back to us, and even going as far as attaching the updated F6. And then I go and check it, and once everything is kosher in terms of what's been provided, Blake provides his information within the ticket, including what corrections that he has implemented into the database on his end. And then I indicate that I'm going to check back on the ticket in a couple of weeks to make sure that Blake's fix has been implemented into the database. And I do so a couple of weeks later. In addition, I correct myself. That does happen. I am human. So I've corrected what discrepancies I've put in previous comments to make sure that it reflects properly within the ticket submission. And then I indicate that I verify that the correction is in our system. And I do close the ticket itself. So pretty much you think of a Datzilla ticket as a document of what actions have been taken in relation to a data value or data values that have been addressed in our data archive. So think of it as traceability or data provenance here. So, okay. All right, I'm gonna go back to the presentation now. And just to give you helpful hints for Datzilla ticket resolutions, I do ask that you be frugal with your ticket submissions. If you have a list of data issues for the same station, I would recommend submitting that as one Datzilla ticket rather than one Datzilla ticket per data issue. The list of issues can be submitted within one ticket. If another scenario is if you have multiple stations for the same data month that are in question, for example, maybe some post QC after your WeatherCoder 3 admin closeout process has been completed for a particular data month, you can submit all those issues within one ticket. So just be frugal about those ticket submissions, because the more ticket submissions you provide, the more action that has to be taken on my end to address them, and if needed, consolidate them into one combined ticket. Expect more time for more lengthy Datzilla ticket submissions. Think of the amount of time that you put into researching the data values that you're reporting to be addressed via Datzilla. It's going to take that much time and then more, because there are actions that have to be taken on our end to address the data issues in question, including investigating each one of them that you submit to us. Treat Datzilla as a two-way communications tool. Reply to questions within a Datzilla ticket when you're asked. There's a reason we're asking a question, so please reply to them when they're submitted. Also, notify the Datzilla Gatekeeper within the ticket. Most of the time, if it's GHCN Daily, it's going to be myself. Let me know if you need more time to reply, because I understand that at your offices, there are certain life and property related priorities that have to take first, that have to be at the very top of your list. So if you need more time, let me know, or let one of the other Datzilla Gatekeepers know. We're able to accommodate that, but just let us know, because we don't know, again, what we don't know. And I did say that twice. Also, do not close or reopen a Datzilla ticket. There are certain metrics that are kept track of. I know on our end, we do monthly reports based on Datzilla tickets that are addressed during the previous month. So please be respectful. You can always comment within a Datzilla ticket without having to close or reopen it. So please keep that in mind. Also, very recently, this one has come up, changing the assignee or those that are already CC'd on a new Datzilla ticket submission. Depending on the source system or the data product that you have selected, those are already preset with the assignee as well as those that need to be CC'd on the ticket. So please do not change those when you submit a new Datzilla ticket. Post all comments related to an existing Datzilla ticket within the ticket itself. Please do so within the additional comments field and click the Save Changes button when you do so. Replying to the email notifications that Datzilla sends to you does not go anywhere except to a black hole in LSU's email server, never to be seen again. So please reply within the Datzilla tickets themselves, not to the email notifications that it sends. And then questions regarding how to submit a Datzilla ticket. If you still have questions, the Datzilla Gatekeeper, like myself or Keith Eggleston, we're more than willing to help you out via email. You just have to email us and ask those questions. Again, you know, we want to make sure that you can submit a Datzilla ticket and make sure to do it in the proper way. So if you have any questions about how to do a certain ticket submission, please feel free to ask us. Email is the best way to communicate to us those questions and concerns that you have. And it is again worth repeating, please be patient. Some Datzilla ticket resolutions take more time to complete than others, especially if you provide a data file that needs to be ingested into the GACN daily data set. More likely, you're not the only office that has done so, and there is a queue of data files that are waiting to be ingested, so please be patient. You're always more than welcome to reply within a Datzilla ticket and ask what the status of the data file ingest is. Please do so, because that allows me to contact our GACN daily point of contact to follow up and see when they expect the file that you're questioning to get ingested. So please keep this in mind. If you have lists of data corrections to provide via Datzilla, just a FYI, NWS Directive 10-10003, or shall I say 10-1003, is being updated as we speak. And within the directive, there is a section regarding Datzilla that is being updated with a Google Drive folder link that Jim Z at National Weather Service headquarters is providing within this directive, that you can access templates for how to provide data corrections, whether you're changing data values, you're adding data values, maybe you're wanting to remove data values that should not be in the archive that for whatever reason there's no verification of where they originate from. Validation of data values, maybe something has been flagged by GACN Daily's QC, and also the invalidation of data values that appear as valid. There are different Excel spreadsheet templates for each of those scenarios, and there is an instruction document that is provided that explains the spreadsheet templates and gives you some best practices in using them. So this is forthcoming within this particular directive. So please keep an eye out for that in the coming weeks. But I have provided the Google Drive link here that you can go ahead and access to get a look at. And again, questions regarding how to use, this should say the Excel spreadsheet templates instead of the Google Drive folders, but regardless, you can ask me via email if you have any questions about these particular templates, because they are for you all, for your WFOs to utilize when submitting a Datzilla ticket, especially if you have lists of data issues that need to be addressed. Hopefully this will help you, but please email me if you have any questions about them. So this is a fairly new item here. So, okay, so if we go from Datzilla ticket submissions and addressing what's being submitted by your offices within them, the related corrections get applied into the GACN Daily data set. So for Datzilla and GACN Daily, all corrections, removal of data values, data additions, data validations, and data invalidations are entered in GACN Daily via Datzilla ticket submission. They're all archived. So, and I should note here that we do not tell any data values itself. removing a data value isn't necessarily the same as tossing a data value. Data values that fail GHC Daily's QC, one of its checks, are marked as invalid. The original values are archived along with a corrected value and the applied action that's been taken on them, whether it's data removal, a data addition, or a data validation or invalidation. And it's important to note it's a system or access point where the data are accessed that determines how the data values are displayed. Whereas if you go and look in the GHC Daily data set itself, none of the values are removed. They appear there with a related quality flag for the QC check that it failed. In other systems, for example, XMASIS treats GHC Daily's flagged data values as missing. So it's very dependent on the particular system, website, access point, et cetera, that you're accessing as to how they appear. And then other items here, data corrections for Datzilla tickets. There is a specific source flag of Z applied to them to indicate that the corrections are the result of a Datzilla ticket. And validations of data values related to Datzilla tickets, they have a quality flag of Z applied to them. And it's dependent on this, again, it is dependent on the system or access point and how it determines the way that they're displayed. So please keep that in mind. To further explain what GHCN-Daily is, for short, it stands for Global Historical Climatology Network, and it's also known as GHCN Daily or GHCN-D. So you may see one of those acronyms referenced within the Datzilla ticket itself. GHCN Daily has 13 QC checks where flags are applied to any station's complete period of record, whether it's historical data from the late 1890s through the 1900s, or maybe incoming data, most recently from Weather Coder 3 after your admin closeout process. The QC checks are applied uniformly from the beginning of the data record to the most recent data value submitted. And the first QC check that a data value fails is marked as invalid and it's attributed to that particular QC check. There is a quality flag associated with it. Again, these normally reflect as missing in XMASIS. Here's, I'm providing some links here for how you can access an overview of the GHCN Daily data set. So I've provided a link to the GHCN Daily description page here that you can view. Additionally, it's been asked about providing more details about GHCN Daily's QC, so I have a link here for the methods of GHCN Daily, and within this particular page, there's a quality control section which outlines for each of the checks what it gives a more layman's terms of what each check is. So if you want a more general description, you can go here, or you can go to the journal articles that discuss GHCN Daily's QC. There's a GHCN Daily references page, so you can go more into the nitty-gritty, into the equations and such of how the checks run. So if you want a general description, or if you want more of a technical description, both of these links provide the information. And I know this is something that was asked by the initial person requesting this webinar, so just want to make sure I have these available for your future reference. The most common GHCN Daily QC flags that get applied to the data that we have, most of the checks, most of the quality flags or QC flags that are applied. The first one, the spatial consistency check, which checks neighboring stations to see how a particular data value compares to them. The climatological outlier check takes I see this most often in relation to an early season snowfall or a late season snowfall event. Also, if there's an unseasonal heat wave or cold spell, I see this particular flag most often. But the most common check that gets triggered is the internal consistency check, and this could be related to inconsistencies related to max and min temperatures, as well as snowfall and snow depth values. This is about 90% of the data values that are flagged that fall within, that get flagged with this particular check. And then the other common check, especially in the WeatherCoder 3 era, is the failed check on length of multi-day period. So that would be cases where the observer has entered single-day rainfall values that fall within the period of a multi-day accumulation. So, and that's most common. I see it most common with WeatherCoder 3, but again, the amount that this particular check flags is nowhere near the internal consistency check. And then I have an acronym for this, soil, based on the quality flags that each of these four have. But these are the most common ones that I see, at least when I get a Datzilla ticket submission. So. And this is a quick look of the flag rates for temperature values. I did show this at the NWS Climate Services meeting last year, but it's worth mentioning here that the flag rate by GHC and Daly's QC compared to our legacy QC suites is less, especially in more recent times, as you see with the not so bold lines of blue and red here. And the number has actually decreased to below 0.2%, especially in the WeatherCoder 3 era. So the improvement of the technology and the ability of observers to enter their data in WeatherCoder 3 has helped immensely, especially with QC. Okay. So here's something that was promised at the Climate Services meeting last year, which I can happily say is available as of yesterday. So these are the GHC and Daly flag files, and we have them grouped by WFO. And they are now available on our FTP site at this particular web address, so you can go and take a look at these. Each WFO has a folder for themselves. And within each of these folders, there is a file for each data month where there are data values for your office's stations, past and present, that have been flagged by GHC and Daly's QC. And these are organized by 4-digit year and 2-digit month. And to show you a sample of one, I believe this is from GSP if I'm not mistaken, but for this particular month, February 2016 or 2016-02, there are 3 values that have been flagged as invalid by GHC and Daly's QC, and they are grouped by GHC ID, year, month, day, the type of element, which here is Tmin is min temp, the SM32 and SX32 are snowfall, or should I say soil temperature values, SN for min soil, SX for maximum soil temperature. And the values are in decimal implied metric units because GHC and Daly is a metric data set because it contains worldwide data, not just for United States. If there were any preset values that were included in this particular file that were a trace, you would see a T for trace here while that value itself is 0. So this blank column here would be where the trace flag would be appearing. And then this would be your quality flag. So these would be the QC checks that fell, that each of these values failed. And then your data source, which in this case, for these particular stations, 7 indicates WeatherCoder 3. So each of these data month files will contain all the values during that particular month that failed GHC and Daly's QC. So included within them, the data values and validator are included. I will also mention that there are plans, some of your WFOs may do QC of COCOROS data. The plan is to include them within these files within the next few weeks, which in this case, they would appear with a GHCN ID of US1 to indicate COCOROS. But this is the plan within the next few weeks. And these files will be updated with each GHCN Daily full reprocess. So these normally they would occur every 7 days, but lately we've had to adjust the schedule to where it occurs every 10 days. So every time a full reprocess of GHCN Daily occurs, these files will be updated. So I would say about every 10 days from now, hopefully we can get it back to the 7-day update schedule. But just remember that when you're looking at these files, that they will continuously update as a new version of GHCN Daily. A full version of GHCN Daily is released. And there is a README file to explain the format of the flag file, even though I've given it verbally. The README file is forthcoming. In the meantime, I have provided a link here for the overall README file that goes over GHCN Daily in terms of all of its data flags, as well as the GHCN ID schema, and goes over all the different available data elements that GHCN Daily provides. So this particular link will provide some overall explanation, but again, expect a more fine-tuned flag files format README file in the coming weeks. And then any specific questions about GHCN Daily's QC can be sent to ncdc.ghcnd@noaa.gov there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you here visually the flag files here. So as you can see, it goes from A to Z here with each of the WFOs, the 3-letter WFO identifier. And just to open one of these, this is for Albuquerque. And each one of these, I'm going to click one of them here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. So back in 1868, there's one station that has 7 data values that have been flagged by GHCN Daily's QC. So this is just to show you a visual, real-life example of how to access them here. So, and for this station, there are a lot of them, but it's one of those where like with anything, you go through them one at a time and you see what the issues are. And the most recent month available for Albuquerque, it looks like it's September of last month, so 2017-09. So it goes back from historical to most recent data. So just wanted to show the visual of this. And hopefully it'll be useful to your offices when you're checking the data. Okay, so the third piece to the puzzle here is related to XMASIS or ASIS in general. So once the data values are in GHCN Daily, they're made available as a data source into XMASIS, which trickles over to the Now data source, but also the annual ThreatX updates, especially for max and min temperatures and for rainfall. So ASIS stands for Applied Climatological Information System, and it is developed by our colleagues at the Northeast Regional Climate Center, or NRCC for short. And I do have the web link here to access XMASIS. And it's important to note, now we're getting to how GHCN Daily appears in XMASIS. So GHCN Daily is the second highest priority data set after the CF6 and CLI products, only for the most recent 90 days. Afterwards, after the most recent 90 days, GHCN Daily becomes the highest priority data set. So it's important to make sure that your CF6s are updated. Any changes that are made to them are communicated to our ASOS point of contact, Blake Lasher, here at NCEI, so that there are no discrepancies between what appears on the CF6s versus what appears in GHCN Daily. So just wanted to make mention of this particular difference. And then to get into the data set priorities, and I have to give credit to Barb Mays at the Omaha National Weather Service office. She has a great XMASIS tutorial, and the information I'm fixing to provide here is from that particular presentation. So I want to credit Barb for some of this, for at least most of this information. Again, the CF6 and CLI products are the highest priority in XMASIS for the most recent 90 days. Then GHCN Daily becomes the highest priority after the most recent 90 days. And I'll mention CF6 and CLI in just a moment further down the list here. And then this is some of the jargon that was mentioned in the initial request for this webinar. There are multiple data sets from NCEI that are used as their own separate data sources within XMASIS. And I'll note some of these here. TD3210, the first order, that's mostly your LCD sites, their data historically. And then your TD3200 is your summary of the day co-op, which is a combination of your LCD published sites as well as your CD published sites. And these are all legacy data sets, the ones that have TD in front of them. So, so these data sets appear after GHCN Daily. And then the CF6 and CLI product takes precedent after these legacy data sets when it's beyond the most recent 90 days. And then your ASOS daily summary messages appear. And then your Chef encoded data, which includes data values that have been submitted via WeatherCoder 3. And this can be pre-admin closeout. It could be the observers entering the data if they enter them daily as the days go on. All of those data are made available via Chef and XMASIS. So how does XMASIS display GHCN Daily's data? So again, the data values flagged as invalid by GHCN Daily's QC, they are treated as missing or in XMASIS. Again, the CF6 or CLI data take precedent over GHCN Daily for the most recent 90 days. And then another difference between XMASIS and GHCN Daily is that our colleagues at the High Plains Regional Climate Center, they have a new real-time feed of data. They appear in GHCN Daily, but they do not appear in XMASIS. However, the Chef encoded messages overall, which is what the HPRCC new real-time feed is composed of, are made available as their own data source within XMASIS. So it's a little difference here, but the data values, for the most part, do appear in XMASIS. It's just from a different data source. Okay, and this is a tool, you may have seen a version of this before, but this is a newer version. Our colleagues at the Northeast Regional Climate Center have made available a climate data comparison tool, an updated version of it at this particular web link, and it is operational as of late last month. And you can use it to compare data from the GHCN Daily data set side by side against data values that appear in XMASIS. What I like about this tool is that it does integrate the data flag conventions from GHCN Daily, as well as the GHCN IDs. And to report any issues with this particular tool or with XMASIS, you can use the XMASIS_NRCC@cornell.edu email address to report issues there. And if you're needing help to find a GHCN ID for any station, and that includes any CoCRA stations that we archive that are available in GHCN Daily, you can use what we're calling our Homer website, HOMR, for Historical Observing Metadata Repository. You can utilize that website to help you find a station and find out what its GHCN ID is. And I'm going to show you the tool here right now. Let me go to there. Okay, and let me make sure this is, there we go. Okay, so NRCC has made this tool available for doing the comparison between ASIS and GHCN Daily. And you can search by GHCN ID, or you can click the question mark here, and it will give you the ability to search by another type of station ID, whether it's co-op ID, waveband number, FAA ID, etc., or by the stations, by doing a search for example, Asheville, North Carolina, Asheville, NC, and doing a search. And it gives you a drop down of all available stations that that can be accessed from ASIS, and this is inclusive of CoCRA sites, it's inclusive of co-op stations, inclusive of your ASOS stations that are in the LCD publications. So you can search by any method here: GHCN ID, station ID itself, or the location. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to search by GHCN ID, and I'm going to look at Asheville Downtown's station. And you notice that when you enter the GHCN ID, and even if you enter the station ID itself, if you enter co-op or waveband, it's going to give you the station name itself and give you the period of record for the station. So you have many methods to query a particular station here. And then once you've done this, you can change your starting year and ending year. NRCC recommends doing every 5 years. In this case, I'm just going to do the current year, starting year and ending year being the same. And I'm going to keep the variable of precip selected. And there is an explanation from NRCC regarding GHCN IDs and some of the differences that you'll see between ASIS and GHCN daily. If I hit the go button here, so it's going to query the system and pay attention to the notes within above each column and make sure that all of the data values that you're querying appear. And you see the GHCN Daily's results, which utilizes the measurement flag, which again, trace if you have trace amounts of precip, the quality flag for the QC check that a value has failed within GHCN Daily. The source flag, where did the particular data value originate from? And then you have your ASIS results, which provide the same information and its respective sources there. And then a comparison between GHCN versus Chef, where you can just look at the values themselves to see how they differ. And on this page, there is an explanation of the different flags from GHCN Daily, the measurement flag, the quality flag itself, quality flags themselves, and then the available source flags, which there are many of them. And then further down, there is a list of all the different source codes for ASIS for its respective data. So, and then where you will see where differences occur, and this will be shown here. Here we go. So we haven't received the data for September as of yet because the admin closeout process in WeatherCoder 3 hasn't been completed for this particular station, which they have until the end of the day tomorrow, the 25th, to do so for September, but also for October, which is the current month, because the month hasn't finished yet. And the observer, which I believe is one of my colleagues, William Angel, these values aren't entered daily, at least from what I can tell here. And these are also not final data. So, but yet XMASIS has values here. There. So anything that's in bold red would indicate differences between GHCN Daily and XMASIS. So hopefully this will be a tool, this will be another investigative tool when you're looking at what GHCN Daily has available in it and comparing it with what's available in XMASIS. So you can see where the differences may lie and see what values we make available and then what values have been flagged, which as a result appear as missing in XMASIS. Okay. Okay. I think at this point I'll take questions if you're okay with doing that, Emily.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you, Brian. And at this time, we'll take questions. So you can type your questions in the questions pane of the GoToWebinar control panel at this time. So we do have a few questions in there already. So I'll just go ahead and get started while others enter their questions. The first one, not necessarily a quality control question, but maybe you can address this. This is going back to the Datzilla ticket on the hail reported as snow. He said, did I read that hail should be recorded as snowfall?
Yes, my understanding is that there are procedures with the National Weather Service as to how hail is to be reported. I know that there are differences between what's reported for co-op versus what may be reported for ASOS or for what's included in F6. So in those particular cases, I would defer to the particular directive or guidance for the particular network that you're talking about. So like Emily, you're the one that submitted the one for Charleston for that, where you put it as a trace. And I'm assuming that is because there is a directive for your ASOS sites or for your LCD sites that ask you to do that, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's why the trace appeared within that ticket, and that's why Emily submitted the ticket for that particular one to be corrected. It's also important to note that, especially for co-op stations, if you have an instance where hail has been reported, it's important to make sure that the day's weather or the observation day weather element, especially if I know in WeatherCoder 3 there is an element that's available for that where there's a check mark or a check box or like a radio button that you select for that. It's important to make sure that those are selected. Likewise with F6, making sure that the occurrence of hail is properly documented there, because a data user you may get a general data user who may not understand that in August, snowfall of trace, they may think, well, snow actually occurred there. But if you include that observation day weather or that day's weather element entry into the F6 for ASOS LCD or the element within Weather Coder 3, it provides the full picture that yes, that particular snow value is an occurrence of hail. And remarks help as well, but definitely the observation day weather or the day's weather element entry, that is very important in addition to the remarks. So.
Okay, great. And I will add, I believe, like in my case, in the CLI, the ASOS did report GR for hail, and so it was recorded as a trace for snowfall. And I believe Jim Z from the Climate Services branch at headquarters has mentioned that in the future they may try to separate out hail and snow in future like that. But obviously more information will come on that if that ever comes to fruition.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question, does a certain number of missing days make an entire month missing? Is this the same regarding multi-day accumulation when days are missing but the data was recorded for a single day?
Okay. Okay, for GHCN daily, as long as there's a data value, we don't exclude a full month of a particular element if there are a certain number of days missing that particular value. So whatever gets reported on a daily basis, whether it's missing or an actual value, it's supposed to be what's reflected in GHCN daily. Now for a multi-day total, whether it's rainfall or snowfall, as long as you have the multi-day accumulation reflecting the correct number of days for the occurrence of that particular accumulation, the single day values within that period of accumulation, they should appear as missing in that particular case. The number of days for that particular accumulation will cover that period. It's when you enter single days within the accumulation period that causes trouble, and that's where you can get where in GHCN daily the values are flagged as invalid, and then if you go and look at XMASIS, the multi-day accumulation along with the days that are within that period all appear as missing. So it's important that when you have an accumulation period, make sure that the entries are right into Weather Coder 3. That's where most of those accumulations are going to occur, and that we're going to receive those from. So just make sure those entries are correct, especially for the multi-day entries. And if you have any questions about those, if you're encountering a scenario as you're doing your QC and you need advice on that, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm more than willing to reply back to you and give you advice on it, especially if it's going to prevent a Datzilla ticket submission, because I'd rather you take steps on your end to make sure the data values are correct, so that there aren't Datzilla tickets on my end that I need to address related to it. So.
Okay, great. Next question. For the flagged data that is within the GHCN daily flag files, are we to issue Datzilla tickets to correct these?
Yes, if you go through and you check the data values and you see that there are some of those values that, for example, I can think of the spatial consistency check, the climatological outlier check, instances such as those, I could foresee getting Datzilla tickets for. Not to say the other ones don't, but I know those are the ones that they're rare, but when they occur, it's possible that it could be related to an unseasonal weather event itself. Yes, the reason that we put those flag files out there is for you all to be able to look and see what GHCN Daily has flagged during its QC. Now, I will say that you may encounter when you go check from one data month to the next that you may have the same station. I can think of maybe historically and in relation to temperature inconsistencies. If you have multiple months for the same station, you can always combine those into one combined ticket and submit for that particular station the list of the data issues submit those via Datzilla. Again, I can advise you if you notice that particular instance, or if you have another scenario from checking the flag files, please email me. I'm definitely willing to advise you on how to do the Datzilla ticket submission so that you're not submitting so many ticket submissions, but you're submitting the Datzilla ticket in the best way. Because think of it this way: an ounce of prevention on your end saves a lot of headache on my end in addressing the flag values and be able to correct them, to be able to apply whatever action is necessary so that they reflect in GOCN daily. So.
Okay, and we have one more question. So a reminder to everyone that if you do have any questions for Bryant, to put them in the questions pane of the GoToWebinar control panel right now. So our last question right now is, can you make this PowerPoint available? It would be a great help to look up the many links that were included in it.
Yes, and I've shared this presentation with Emily, and the Google Drive link that I have provided to Emily is noted, it's marked so that anyone that is within NOAA that has access to the link can download it, and you can view it on your own time. So yes, definitely, the information provided here, I want it to be helpful to your offices. So yes, by all means, Emily, if you can share the link with them, go ahead.
Yep, I certainly will. So I will send out the Google Drive link when I send out the recording within the next couple of days. So that will definitely be shared with everybody.
Okay. All right.
So it looks like that's all the questions we have right now. Brian, did you have anything else you'd like to show?
Yes, I've got on the screen, I always, whenever I do a presentation, I try to promote our social media and web pages. So we have a Facebook page for the weather and climate side of NCEI. We also have a Twitter page that you can access, which provides the latest updates from the weather and climate side of our agency. And then from the coast, oceans, and geophysics side, we have a Facebook page for this, along with our Twitter account. And then you can always access our website at www.ncei.noaa.gov. And we've already done questions or comments. And again, you can email me anytime if you have any questions. If I'm gone for the weekend, or if I'm out of the office for the weekend or taking vacation, I will reply to your message as soon as I return. And then within this presentation that's going to be shared by Emily to you all, there is supplemental information within this presentation that I have included. Just for time's sake, I didn't include it within the main presentation, but it does contain information about Datzilla. It also includes information about GOCN Daily's QC, including examples of how the QC is applied, real life examples, I should say here. And then there's additional information about best practices. It gives a little bit more detail about best practices related to Datzilla ticket submissions. So I just wanted to mention all that. That's all I've got.
All right, well, thank you, Brian. I think it was an excellent presentation. I know this information will be very beneficial for the focal points moving forward. So thank you again, and thank you everyone for attending and participating in today's presentation. Give us a few days and we'll have the materials from today's seminar, including the recording, posted online. So thanks again, and this concludes our webinar for today.